Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Moms Talk Sex podcast, taking shame out of your sexual game with your host, Maury Yelvington of Morph Transform Your Reality, where I help women step out of trauma and reclaim their feminine power. And I'm so honored to have with me the beautiful Jenny today. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Moore. Thank you so much for having me here. Ooh, it looks like it's going to be juicy conversation. So fun.
Yes, and I'm so excited to have you here. So why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us your story, because I feel like your story is really going to empower a lot of women to start getting more awareness into their own sexuality.
Thank you. My name is Jenny Lee. I work as an English teacher for 11th graders in Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm also a mindset coach, and I help women with crafting their morning routines so that they could start their mornings with joy and love. And so that way they know how to nourish themselves and create their world from a place of love. So that's what I do. And next is my story. Okay, I'll start with my background, I guess. I grew up in Indonesia, and it's predominantly Muslim population, and they're pretty conservative. If you don't know, if you might not have heard that they've just passed a law banning sex outside marriage.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. Like, it even gets crazier now, but no, it's just the politics, really. And I grew up as in a Chinese family, which was also very conservative. And we went to Catholic church, also super conservative. And so now that we're talking about sex, it's like, anything sexual, from that environment, those environments, wherever I went. Yeah, even the word is a taboo, really. And so
Right.
there's like taboos everywhere. Like I was telling you earlier, with like how I grew up with so much shaming, and especially being a woman.
Mhm.
So I guess, yeah, where do we start? Puberty was really hard because yeah, we were taught to always cover our bodies, right? From all those cultures that I grew up in. And when I had periods, wow, that was like the most embarrassing thing. And when I had like just even a leak on my underwear, or like, oh gosh, like God forbid, on my pants, or like, or on anything that I was wearing at that time, that would have been so mortifying. Um, and yeah, there's just like, it's in the culture when you're having your period, it's dirty, right?
Yeah.
I told you, there is this phrase in Chinese that my aunts would say when I have a period, and the word is anzhang. That means dirty. So it's like
Mhm.
every month I would have something dirty, coming out of me. And so, like, all of that kind of conditioning, right? It's like, ooh, the female body is dirty, it needs to be covered. It's shameful, like, to be showing your, like, all of your arms or your legs. And like growing up, yeah, it was really comfortable to just like stay hidden. And I remember okay, this is like in Jakarta, when I was going to Catholic school. I would walk home, right, from school in my Catholic school uniform, but on a daily basis I would get sexual harassment.
Yeah.
It could be because, like I look different, because I'm Chinese, but whatever, but it is like, okay, a female walking down on her own and she's an open target, like,
Yeah.
so of course you could harass her because she's female. And so that just happened like a lot. And so I became very um I became like so I shrank
Yeah.
basically sexually. And it's also a culture that teaches women that sex, right? It's for um of course reproductive reason, right?
Yes.
Like procreating, and for women to serve their husbands, to serve the men. And so there's no mentioning of like female orgasm as when I was in Indonesia, so at least not during my well, when I learned about sex, right? And I only learned like female having orgasms probably like, in my, I don't know, like in my 20s. And that was because I was reading Cosmopolitan. And that's kind of like how I learned, like, a little bit of the Western belief, like, a little bit of like how the West sees sex from foreign magazines, because I was reading a lot too at that time. Because I never talked about sex with my parents. And they always avoided that conversation. So yeah, it was all just like really weird when it comes to sex. And so when I got into all these relationships, and those were sexual relationships, and I never orgasmed.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting part of my journey to learn about my own sexuality. It was not even like I wasn't even learning. I was, I think, just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. You know, hiding my sexuality, and kind of repressing it in a way, because when you're there's also like this idea of like women when they're proud of their sexuality, or they're maybe proud of a part of their body that want to accentuate, then that'd be slut shaming, right? And you're too coquettish, you're asking for it. And I remember when I was in high school, it was my chemistry teacher, and he was like, this loud man. And this is like the story that he told us. I was in a bus one time, and there was this girl wearing a strapless top, and I just yelled at her something like, well, to translate it roughly to English, are you asking to get raped? Like, so he was like bragging, yelling that to this girl who was wearing a topless, so who was wearing like a strapless top. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting environment that's very repressive of the female sexuality. And so, yeah, until I was maybe in my 30s, I never really looked at my vagina because, it just looked, it wasn't even the way it looked. It was really the judgment that I had, right? That was shaped by my society at that time that I grew up in. And so, yeah, does that give you a good idea of how I grew up?
Yes, I think it really nails it. And I think it really touches to a lot of women. I mean, yes, when you're growing up in a very religious home, the shame is very loud and clear. And um, it's almost this like message of like, you have to be pure, but then you need to get married and know what to do in a relationship, right? It's
Mhm.
it's very two messages. They're really mixing up, and I think create a lot of confusion with women, because on one hand you're not allowed to explore your sexuality, you're not allowed to touch your body, you're not allowed to have relationships with others, but then you're supposed to get married and have kids, right?
Yeah, that is so weird. So that's interesting. So I used to live in Thailand. And Southeast Asia, they have pretty similar culture too, that women are expected to be virgin before they get married, because then, if you are not a virgin, then you have no value for the man.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, and that's pretty much like how I was taught too. I remember having a cousin that told me similar things. So she said, oh, if you are married to this man and you're a virgin, you are wholly his, then he would appreciate you more, rather than if you had sex with another man, like it would feel like you're a chewed gum or something. She said that.
It's
But
just so crazy.
I was 13 or 14 that time. Well,
Yes.
I internalized that.
Of course, because that's what we
Yeah,
do. We
but
take all these beliefs, we take all these judgments, we turn
right?
them into our truth, and then we create our life upon it. And then we get to the 30 years old, not even knowing what an orgasm feels like, being ashamed of our body, right? These are the
Yeah.
roots of those voices in our head. That's why it's so important when you start your healing journey, when you start
Mhm,
being aware, when you start noticing that those voices in your head aren't really yours, they're not the truth, they're just the truth, the voice of judgment, and it's
mhm.
just stopping you from being who you really meant to be. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
what so maybe
And
you can start sharing with us, so what brought you to a place now where, you know what was the turning point, and where are you now?
Okay, that's interesting. Oh, but I do want to continue that story when I was in Thailand of like, that expectation, right, from women of being a virgin and untouched. But then, like, in the culture, um, fathers, I heard, would take their teenage boys to prostitutes so that they would learn how to be good at sex
Oh
to
my
prepare
gosh.
them. Right, like the hypocrisy, right? But yeah, it is like, yeah, on your question, like, what brought me to the healing is really at first is the seeds of like, that questioning, right? Like, realizing that it's really unfair because with all the shaming and the slut shaming that I was growing up with, because I did have different boyfriends, and the slut shaming would come from my mother, right? It's like, you've been with different men, that is shameful. Um, and yeah, like she did say, like, oh, you're acting like a slut.
Yeah.
um, and then seeing other women, other girls, like, that I went to college with, that would experience the same thing, right? It's like, oh, well, you talk first to the man, like, of course, like, if they harass you, like, that would be your fault, and whatever. But then, like, with men, there's really no consequence or anything, that
Right.
they could be like, causing a lot of problems, like, reputation for
Yeah.
girls that time, like, you would have a good reputation when you've been in touch, right?
Right.
When you have like, maybe one steady boyfriend, and that's it. And so that kind of started, like, that questioning. And oh my gosh, I'm so
Right.
sorry.
It's a, I don't know.
It's the fire alarm.
The fire alarm. Okay.
Yeah, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we should probably like edit that part.
Okay. I'll make sure to edit this out.
Okay.
See what.
Um, okay. Um, when it stops, I'm going to continue.
Okay. No
Sorry
problem.
about that. Hmm.
Does it stop by itself normally?
Yeah, it's still on. I'm not really sure. They did say something about testing the fire alarm. Okay, it
Oh,
stops. Yeah.
okay.
But I was expecting to record this at the school, not at
That's
home.
right. Sorry.
Sorry about that. But
Okay, keep recording.
Okay. And I did, although I was questioning that, I kind of continued, using sex as like a way to validate my worth, I guess, like feeling wanted. And okay, I internalized that idea of sex as, a tool to serve your man, to satisfy your man. Although I had like a different outlook of like what an independent woman should be. And I thought I was an independent woman, because I started working and I was successful, and all of that. But so, okay, after my marriage ended, so I was married for 10 years. It was because I was just very unhappy. And it got worsened after I gave birth to my son. And I was so depleted. And our relationship just got strained even like 20 times more, and to a point where the divorce happened. Then after that, I got into another toxic relationship. So yeah, I had never really been on my own very much. And so after that toxic relationship ended, I got to be with myself. So I was single for 4 years. And honestly, that was the best years of my life, finding myself, and healing myself from the inside, finding my own emotional independence. And I think the biggest thing is really that realization that I had not been sexually satisfied, not very often at all. Then actually, not too long after the divorce, I learned a little more about Tantra, and then I got even more and more curious. And I practiced breath work, and learned about yoni egg. And yeah, that's when I started learning about my own anatomy. And how the clitoris, the vulva, are the parts that are stimulated, but I wouldn't have known without me trying on my own, right? And so it's interesting, in this culture that glorifies sex, right? With that expectation of orgasm and all of that, but it doesn't teach women to be familiar with their own bodies, and teaching them that, what, you could, just like men, you could also satisfy yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how I learned to set my boundaries, really. And so before, all my sexual relationships, even in marriage, a lot of those, well, no, actually all of them were built on my compromises. It's like, oh, as a woman, you're massaging their ego, satisfy them sexually and all of that. But then I realized, what about me?
Right.
I was not served at all in those relationships, and I did not even know that, right? And so that was my biggest realization. And so when I learned, my own anatomy and my own sexuality, that was very empowering. And I came to a point where, I also have that understanding that when you have sexual intercourse with someone, you are exchanging energy, you're taking in their energy, right? And so during that time when I was, my time of solitude, I thought to myself, why would I need a man to have sex with when I could have sex with crystals, with beautiful energy?
Right.
And so that was it. That was just like the most satisfying time of uh, learning about myself, enjoying my own company, learning more about my body and how it works. And I was so happy. And also, like me spending more time with myself in the morning, generating like the most joyful, happy energy. And I was also surrounded by a lot of quite a few beautiful female friends who are just loving and kind, and that's like the kind of unconditional love that I deserve. But I did not know, before all of this, because I was just always so polluted with like one relationship after and then another one after that. And then like when I just surrounded myself with women and just be comfortable in this feminine energy and allow myself to receive the love, that was like the best kind of love. Then I set another standard of the kind of love that I deserve. Right. And so that everything, all of those really helped with my healing. And now I'm actually in another relationship that is so much more meaningful and so much more satisfying. And it's not based on compromises, and we communicate so much better. Like, and there's so much honesty. But I wouldn't have had that had I not experienced all of these toxic relationship that brought me to this period of time when I spent time learning about myself and spent time with myself, and learning about the kind of love that I really deserve. And so, yeah, I'm in a much healthier relationship now.
That's amazing. And so what is maybe some tools that you can share with our moms that are listening that can really help them start getting maybe more awareness about, maybe where they are holding on to shame around sex? They can
Okay.
really help them, kind
Yeah.
of step out of that shame.
Okay. So some of the shame that I had was also, I think, caused by the media, right? And also that expectation of how women should look like. And I feel that, you know, okay, women should look like these models that you see on I don't know, makeup ads or lingerie ads. Um, and so sometimes I would feel self-conscious, like, when I gained weight, like after I gave birth. And so that made me feel very unsexy and shameful about, like, oh, okay, I got some jiggles, or muffin top, or whatever that is. But then I one tool that I learned, that I still do every morning, is to bless every part of my body. And then like I would then get to my breasts and my belly, um and my vagina, my yoni, right? And bless every part of it and give so much love to every part of these, because these are not made for, like, to be exploited for men. Like, it's not like these parts are not made for men's pleasure. And that's, I think, the realization that a lot of women need to have. Like, these are my territories. Like, this is like my whole body is mine. And it needs my love. And so once I do that, like, I feel loved. And you know what? It's so much easier to feel sexy and confident and empowered when after I give myself, like, the blessing and the love,
Mhm.
especially on the parts that are like, that carry a lot of shame, right?
Yes.
So that's one. And um, when I'm on my own,
Hmm.
I explore my own body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be okay, because it's interesting. It used to be like I would like the discharge that I have from my body, right? Especially the vagina area. Like I would consider that disgusting.
Mhm.
And then after I practice all the blessing, all the loving, it's so natural. It's not
Yeah,
dirty. It's
right.
okay. And so it's okay for me to finger myself. Like, it's okay for me to like, touch that part of the body. Um, and, and that way, like, I feel like I'm integrating to the
Yeah,
wholeness of myself,
yeah,
including that. And so that's how I learned to self-love, to love all of me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love that. Thank you so much. So
you're
if
very
our
welcome.
listeners want to find you and your services, where can they reach you? Where can they find you?
I am active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Sunny Jenny Lee, one word. So yeah, feel free to message me anytime. But I will also send you my Facebook page link so that you could probably put that on your show notes.
Yeah, we will share all the information in the body of this episode. So I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable, for sharing, for talking about, these topics that a lot of women feel shameful to talk about. You're brave and strong, and I'm so, so honored to have you. So really thank you. And thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate you. If you want to join our community, you're welcome to check out the Moms Talk Sex Facebook page. And I will see you all next week. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Thank you.